The morning sky over Thesara Prime burned red with falling ships. Administrator Veltar pressed her long fingers against the observation window of the colony's command center and watched another evacuation transport explode in the upper atmosphere. The Korthak warships hung in orbit like metal vultures, their weapons picking off anything that tried to escape the planet's surface. "How many?" she asked without turning around. 17,000 dead in the last hour," replied her aide, a young Zalani named Korin. His voice shook as he read from the data pad. "The northern settlements are completely gone. The Korthak ground forces are moving faster than we expected." Veltar closed her eyes. 3 million Zalani lived on this world. 3 million souls who had come here seeking peace, far from the wars and conflicts that plagued other parts of the galaxy. They had built schools and hospitals, art centers and meditation, gardens. They had created something beautiful on this distant world. Now it was all burning. "Send another message to the Confederation fleet," she said. "Administrator, I already tried. They're still 3 days away and—" Korin paused, looking at his screen. "The Korthak reinforcements arrived 2 hours ago. Even if our fleet comes, they won't be strong enough." The truth hit like a cold wind. The Zalani Confederation was a peaceful society. They built the galaxy's finest medical equipment and designed beautiful cities that worked in harmony with nature. But they were not warriors. Their ships carried healing rays, not weapons of war. Their soldiers trained to rescue people from disasters, not fight battles against enemies who lived only to conquer and destroy. Another explosion lit the sky. This time, it was one of their own defense platforms, torn apart by Korthak plasma cannons. Veltar watched the burning pieces fall toward the mountains where her own children lived in one of the underground shelters. "What about the other species?" she asked. "The Drakmor? The Etherians?" Korin's face grew darker. "The Drakmor said it's not their fight. The Etherian Council is still debating. The Nexus Collective ran their calculations and said a rescue mission has only a 12% chance of success." Veltar turned away from the window. Behind her, dozens of Zalani worked at control stations, coordinating the defense of their world. Most of them were young, too young to die like this. Many had never seen violence before today. The Zalani had not fought a war in over 300 years. "The Vorthak Alliance?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "They said they're sorry for our loss." "Our loss?" Veltar's voice grew sharp. "We're not dead yet." "Administrator," said another voice. Commander Thex, the head of their small military force, approached with blood on his uniform. "We're out of options. The orbital platforms are gone. Our ground forces can hold the main cities for maybe 6 more hours. After that, he didn't need to finish." Everyone in the room knew what happened to worlds that fell to the Korthak Empire. The survivors became slaves, worked to death in the mines that stripped planets bare. Children were taken from their parents and raised as soldiers. For the next conquest, entire cultures disappeared as if they had never existed. "There is one more thing we can try," Veltar said slowly. The room grew quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. "The emergency broadcast system," she continued. "We could send a signal on all frequencies, not just to the known civilizations, but everywhere. Maybe someone out there will hear us, someone who can help." Commander Thex frowned. "Administrator, we've already contacted every major power in the galaxy. Who else is there?" "I don't know," Veltar admitted. "But doing nothing means we all die. At least this way, we try everything." She walked to the main communication console and began working on the controls. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic interface, setting the signal to broadcast on every frequency their equipment could reach. The message would travel far beyond the boundaries of known civilization, out into the dark spaces between the stars where no one thought intelligent life existed. "What should we say?" asked Korin. Veltar thought for a moment, then began to speak into the transmitter. Her words would be translated automatically into every major galactic language. This is Administrator Veltar of the Zalani colony on Thesara. Prime. We are under attack by the Korthak Empire. 3 million civilians are trapped on this world. Our defenses have failed. We have nowhere to run. Her voice cracked slightly. If anyone receives this message, if anyone out there can help us, please. We have children here, families, people who just want to live in peace. We're not asking you to fight our war. Just help us get our people to safety. Please, someone. Anyone. She ended the transmission and set it to repeat every 10 minutes. The signal began broadcasting immediately, spreading out from Thesara Prime at the speed of light, carrying their desperate plea into the darkness. How far will it reach? Asked Commander Thex. Further than any of our previous signals, Veltar replied. The emergency transmitter has more power than our regular communications. It should reach the edge of known space and beyond. And what's beyond known space? Empty systems, dead worlds, maybe nothing at all. She paused, watching the transmission indicator pulse on her screen, or maybe something we never thought to look for. Outside, the sounds of battle grew closer. Korthak dropships roared through the atmosphere, bringing more soldiers to hunt down the Zalani hiding in their cities. The air filled with smoke and the screams of the dying. Hours passed. The distress signal continued broadcasting while the defenders fought a losing battle on the ground. Reports came in from across the planet. The southern cities had fallen. The eastern settlements were surrounded. Only the main city still held, and barely. Veltar remained at her post in the command center, even as explosions shook the building around her. Some of her staff had fled to the underground shelters. Others stayed, helping coordinate the last desperate defense of their world. They all knew it was hopeless, but they kept working anyway. Any responses to the signal? She asked. Every hour. Nothing, came the answer each time. As night fell, the Korthak forces prepared for their final assault on the city. Their ships moved into position above the capital, ready to burn it to ash if the people inside didn't surrender. War Leader. Gask. The commander of the invasion force sent his ultimatum. People of this world, his voice boomed from speakers throughout the city. You have fought bravely, but you have lost. Surrender now, and some of you will live as slaves. Continue to resist, and you will all burn. Veltar looked around the command center. Only a few dozen Zalani remained at their posts. Young Korin sat beside her, tears in his eyes, but still working at his station. Commander Thex stood by the window, watching the enemy ships gather overhead. Send the signal again, she said quietly. Administrator, it's been broadcasting continuously for 18 hours. If anyone was going to answer, send it again, she repeated, her voice firm. The message went out once more, carrying the same desperate words into the void. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone might be listening. Someone might care that an entire world was about to die. But as the Korthak ships began to glow with charging weapons, it seemed that the Zalani would face their end alone. War Leader Gask stood on the bridge of his flagship, the mighty dreadnought Bloodfang, and smiled. Below him, the Zalani world burned in perfect patterns. His ships had done their work well. Soon, this planet would join the 17 others. He had conquered for the glory of the Korthak Empire. Status report, he growled to his tactical officer. All major cities are surrounded, War Leader. The orbital defenses are destroyed. Enemy fleet strength is 0. We estimate final victory. In 6 hours. Excellent. Gask walked to the viewing screen that showed Thesara Prime spinning slowly beneath them. And the distress signal? Still broadcasting, sir. The same message, repeating every 10 minutes. We've detected responses from several major powers. Oh? Gask's interest was mild. He had faced intervention before. Who dares to interfere? No one, War Leader. The Drakmor said it's not their concern. The Etherian Council is debating, but they won't reach a decision for days. The Nexus Collective calculated the mission parameters and decided not to act. Gask laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. Of course they did. The galaxy is full of cowards who speak of peace and justice, but run when real strength appears. That's why the Korthak will inherit everything. Sir, interrupted the communications officer, there's something else. The Zalani signal is being broadcast on frequencies that extend beyond normal space. It's reaching systems we've never explored. Even better, Gask replied. Let the empty worlds hear their crying. Let the void itself know that the Korthak Empire cannot be stopped. He turned back to the tactical display, planning the final assault. The main city still held, protected by energy shields and the last of their defense systems. It would fall within hours, but Gask wanted it done perfectly. This victory would be spoken of in the war songs for generations. War leader. The sensor. Operator's voice cut through his thoughts. I'm detecting something on the long-range scanners. What kind of something? Ships, sir. Coming out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Gask frowned. Our reinforcements aren't scheduled to arrive. For another day? Identify those vessels. The sensor operator worked frantically at his controls. Sir, these aren't our ships. The design is unknown. The engine signatures don't match anything in our database. How many ships? Scanning. Sir, I count 120 vessels. Various sizes, but all built for war. They're moving toward us at maximum speed. Gask felt a small flutter of concern, but pushed it aside. He commanded 50 of the finest warships in the galaxy, including 3 dreadnoughts like his own Bloodfang. Whatever fools had decided to interfere would learn the price of opposing the Korthak Empire. Open a channel to the approaching fleet, he ordered. The communication screen flickered to life. But instead of a familiar alien face, it showed something Gask had never seen before. The creature had smooth skin, short fur only on top of its head, and small eyes that seemed to burn with inner fire. It wore what looked like military clothing, dark blue with metal decorations. This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, the creature said in perfect galactic standard. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Gask stared at the screen. Earth? United Earth Defense Force? These names meant nothing to him. His ships carried the most complete database of galactic civilizations ever assembled, but this, Earth wasn't in it. Unknown vessel, he replied, putting command authority into his voice. You are interfering with a legitimate conquest operation. I am war leader Gask of the Korthak Empire. These are our hunting grounds. Withdraw immediately. Or be destroyed. The human's expression didn't change. Negative, war leader. We're here to assist the civilians under attack. Stand down your forces and withdraw from this system immediately. Gask's laugh echoed through the bridge. You dare give orders to me? I have conquered 17 worlds. I have crushed entire fleets. What could one unknown species possibly do against the might of the Korthak Empire? You'll find out if you don't leave, Admiral Chen replied calmly. The transmission ended. Gask stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his tactical officer. Show me these ships. The main display shifted to show the approaching human fleet. Gask studied the vessels carefully. They were smaller than his dreadnoughts, but they moved with precision and purpose. Their hulls were angular, aggressive, built by people who understood war. Most disturbing of all, they carried weapons he couldn't identify. Sir, reported the sensor operator, they're deploying into battle formation. Moving to intercept our position. How long until they reach us? 17 minutes at their current speed. Gask considered his options. He could withdraw, but that would shame him before his crew and the Empire. He could negotiate, but the Korthak didn't negotiate with inferiors. Or he could fight and add another victory to his collection. All ships, battle formation, he commanded. Target the largest enemy vessels first. Show these humans what happens when they challenge the Korthak Empire. His fleet moved into position, 50 warships against 120. The numbers weren't ideal, but Korthak's ships were stronger than anything else in the galaxy. His crews were experienced killers who had never known defeat. War leader, called the communications officer. The humans are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. They're talking to the Zilani. Put it on the main speaker. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge. The Sara Prime colony, this is Admiral Chen. We're moving to engage the hostile forces in your system. Begin immediate evacuation of all civilians. Our transports will be with you shortly. Gask snarled. They think they can evacuate 3 million people while fighting my fleet? These humans are either very brave or very stupid. Perhaps both, sir, replied his tactical officer. The human fleet continued its approach. As they drew closer, Gask could see more details on his sensors. Their ships moved in perfect formation, like a school of predator fish. Each vessel maintained exact distances from its neighbors. No wasted motion, no unnecessary actions. Sir, they're still accelerating, reported the navigation officer. Their speed is beyond anything we've seen before. Impossible. Our engines are the fastest in the galaxy. Confirmed, war leader. They're moving 30% faster than our maximum velocity. Gask felt his first real moment of doubt, but he pushed it aside. Speed meant nothing without firepower, and no one could match Korthak weapons. Range to target? 5 minutes to optimal firing distance. All weapons, prepare to fire. Target their command ship first. The bridge grew quiet as his crew prepared for battle. Gask had fought this way dozens of times before. The enemy would fire first, their weak weapons bouncing harmlessly off Korthak's shields. Then his fleet would respond with overwhelming force, turning enemy ships into expanding clouds of debris. 4 minutes to range. On the screen, the human ships continued their steady approach. They showed no signs of fear or hesitation. If anything, they seemed eager for the fight. 3 minutes. Gask gripped the command rail. Soon, these unknown humans would learn what every other species in the galaxy already knew. The Korthak Empire was unstoppable. 2 minutes. War leader, the sensor operator called out. I'm detecting something strange about their weapon systems. What? Kind of strange? I can't tell what they are, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. It's like they're using completely different physics. 1 minute to optimal range. Gask raised his hand, ready to give the order to fire. Around him, his crew waited for the command. That would begin another glorious victory for the Empire. But as the human ships drew closer, he began to notice something else. They weren't just moving in formation. They were moving like a single organism. Every ship turned at exactly the same moment. Every weapon trained on targets with perfect precision. 30 seconds to range. War leader, whispered his tactical officer. Look at their approach vector. Gask looked. The humans weren't charging straight at his fleet like every other enemy he'd faced. Instead, they were coming in at an angle that would let them hit his ships from multiple directions at once. It was a tactic he'd never seen before, but he recognized its deadly efficiency. Sir, should we fire? Gask roared. The Korthak fleet opened fire, sending streams of plasma and particle beams toward the human ships. For a moment, space lit up with the deadly energy of their weapons, but when the light faded, the human ships were still coming. And now, they were firing back. The first human weapons hit the Korthak fleet like nothing Gask had ever experienced. Blue beams of energy sliced through his ship's shields as if they weren't there. Where the beams touched armor, metal simply disappeared, leaving perfectly. Clean holes that glowed red-hot at the edges. Report! Gask shouted as his flagship shook under enemy fire. Shields down to 60%, called his tactical officer. Sir, their weapons are cutting through our defenses like they're made of paper. Impossible! Korthak's shields are the strongest in the galaxy. But even as he said it, Gask watched 3 of his heavy cruisers explode in brilliant fireballs. The pious human ships moved between his vessels like deadly dancers, never staying in one place long enough for his gunners to target them properly. "They're using some kind of coordinated attack pattern," reported the sensor operator. "Every ship knows exactly where the others are going to be. They're fighting like a single mind, controlling multiple bodies." Gask gripped his command chair as another blast shook the blood fang. "All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessel. Take out their leader." His fleet tried to focus their weapons on Admiral Chen's ship, but the humans had anticipated this. Smaller vessels moved to protect their flagship, their own weapons striking back with devastating accuracy. When the Korthak plasma cannons fired, the human ships simply weren't where they expected them to be. "War leader!" The communications officer's voice cracked with panic. "The heavy cruiser Deathclaw is requesting immediate assistance. They've lost main power and life support." On the tactical display, Gask could see the Deathclaw drifting helplessly as human ships surrounded it. But instead of destroying the crippled vessel, the humans were doing something unexpected. They were attaching small craft to its hull. "What are they doing to our ship?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be boarding it." "Boarding?" Gask snarled. "Do they plan to capture our warriors? They'll find that Korthak's soldiers don't surrender." But as minutes passed, something strange happened. The Deathclaw's emergency systems came back online. Life support was restored. The ship was being repaired by the same humans who had crippled it. "Sir," the sensor operator said quietly, "I'm detecting life pod launches from the Deathclaw. The humans are evacuating our crew." "Evacuating them?" "Yes, sir. They're taking our wounded soldiers to safety before they continue repairs on the ship." Gask stared at the display in confusion. What kind of enemy saved the lives of warriors they had just defeated? It made no tactical sense. In Korthak warfare, defeated enemies were left to die in the wreckage of their ships. "War leader, the destroyer Swift Death is reporting similar activity. The humans disabled their weapons, but now they're helping repair their life support systems." This was beyond Gask's understanding. The human ships could have destroyed both vessels easily. Instead, they were spending time and resources to keep Korthak's soldiers alive. It was wasteful, inefficient, and completely unlike anything he had seen in 50 years of warfare. "Sir!" The tactical officer's voice brought him back to the immediate battle. "The humans are targeting our weapon systems specifically. They're not trying to destroy our ships. They're trying to disable them." Gask looked at the battle display again. The human fleet had torn through his formation with surgical precision. Ship after ship was being disabled rather than destroyed. Their crews were being rescued rather than killed. It was the most alien behavior he had ever witnessed. "All remaining ships, full retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to the edge of the system." But even as his surviving vessels tried to flee, the humans pursued them, not to destroy them, but to continue their strange rescue operations. They seemed more concerned with saving Korthak lives than winning the battle. "War leader," called the communications officer. "Admiral Chen is requesting to speak with you. Put him on screen." The human's face appeared again. But this time, Gask noticed something different. The alien's eyes showed no triumph, no satisfaction in victory. Instead, there was something that looked almost like sadness. War leader Gask. Admiral Chen said, "Your fleet is defeated. Your invasion force on the planet has surrendered. We're prepared to let you withdraw from this system with your surviving ships. You're letting us go?" Gask couldn't hide his confusion. "We are your enemies. We came here to conquer and enslave. Why would you show us mercy?" "Because you're beaten," Chen replied simply. "And because killing people who can't fight back isn't warfare, it's murder." "But we would not show you the same mercy." "I know. That's the difference between us." The transmission ended, leaving Gask staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to keep the Bloodfang operational. The ship had taken heavy damage, but the humans could have destroyed it completely if they had chosen to. "Sir," reported the sensor operator, "the humans are moving away from us. They're heading toward the planet to claim their prize," Gask said bitterly. "No, sir. They're beginning evacuation operations." Gask turned to look at the tactical display. The human fleet had split into two groups. The warships maintained a protective perimeter around the planet, while smaller vessels, transports, and rescue ships dove toward the surface. The evacuation was beginning even before the last Korthak forces had surrendered. "How many transports do they have?" "Over 200, sir, and they're moving fast, much faster than any civilian ship should be able to travel in atmosphere." On the planet below, the Zalani colonists emerged from their hiding places to find human soldiers waiting for them. But these weren't the brutal conquerors they had expected. The humans moved gently among the civilians, helping the wounded, carrying small children, speaking in soft voices that somehow managed to communicate comfort despite the language barrier. "War leader," the communications officer said hesitantly. "We're receiving reports from our ground forces." "What kind of reports?" "The humans are treating our wounded soldiers, sir. They're giving medical aid to our troops alongside the Zalani." "Civilians." Gask said nothing. He had no words for what he was witnessing. In his entire military career, he had never seen an enemy show kindness to defeated foes. The Korthak Empire had built its strength on the simple principle that the weak existed only to serve the strong, but these humans seemed to follow entirely different rules. "Sir, Admiral Chen is broadcasting to the entire system. Put it on speakers." The human's voice filled the bridge once again. "Attention all ships and ground forces in this system. Medical facilities aboard human vessels are available to treat wounded from all sides. We make no distinction between Zalani and Korthak casualties. Any ship requesting medical assistance should approach slowly with weapons powered down." Several of Gask's damaged vessels immediately changed course toward the human medical ships. His own crew looked at him questioningly, but he found himself nodding. His warriors needed help, and the humans were offering it freely. "War leader," his tactical officer said quietly, "what kind of species are these humans?" Gask had no answer. Everything he thought he knew about warfare, about strength and weakness, about the nature of intelligent life itself, had been turned upside down in the space of 17 minutes. On the planet below, the evacuation continued. Human transports rose from the surface, carrying thousands of Zalani civilians to safety. The ships moved in perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly where to go and when. The entire operation flowed like a carefully rehearsed dance. "How long will it take them to evacuate 3 million people?" Gask asked. "At their current rate, maybe 18 hours, sir. 18 hours to move 3 million souls to safety. The Korthak Empire would have needed weeks to accomplish the same task, and they would have lost thousands to poor planning and inefficient execution." "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message specifically for you from Admiral Chen." "What does he want?" "He says you have 1 hour to collect your survivors and leave this system. If his forces detect any Korthak ships within 10 light years of any Zalani world again, they won't be so merciful next time." Gask laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Merciful? They call this merciful? Sir, they destroyed our fleet in 17 minutes, rescued our crews, treated our wounded, and now they're letting us go free. If this is mercy, I would hate to see what they consider ruthless." He turned to his crew. "Signal all ships. We're leaving this system immediately. And send a message to High Command. Tell them we need to know everything about these humans. Everything." As the battered Korthak fleet limped away from Thesara Prime, War Leader Gask took one last look at the human vessels. They continued their rescue operations with the same precision they had shown in battle. Efficient, deadly, and impossibly compassionate. For the first time in his career, Gask was afraid. Not of dying in battle. That was a warrior's fate. He was afraid of what these humans represented. A species that could fight like demons, but choose to act like angels. A people who viewed strength not as a tool for domination, but as a responsibility. To protect the weak, the galaxy had no idea what was coming. News of the impossible rescue spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours of the battle at Thesara Prime, every major civilization had dispatched their fastest ships to investigate. What they found challenged everything they thought they knew about the nature of intelligent life. Ambassador Zentar of the Drakmor Pack arrived first, his sleek warship dropping out of hyperspace 3 days after the humans had departed. The Drakmor were the galaxy's finest warriors, a proud species that had earned respect through countless victories. But what Zentar saw in the Thesara system left him speechless. "Report," he commanded his tactical officer. "Sir, we're detecting massive debris fields throughout the system. Analysis shows the remains of 53 Korthak vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. But, sir, the strange thing is—" "What?" "There are no bodies, sir. No organic remains. At all. It's like someone carefully removed every living being before the ships were destroyed." Zentar frowned. In Drakmor warfare, fallen enemies were left where they died as a warning to others. The idea of rescuing defeated foes was not just foreign, it was incomprehensible. "What about the planet?" "Completely evacuated, sir. All 3 million Zalani civilians have been relocated to temporary colonies in the outer systems. The evacuation was perfect. No casualties during the transport operation." "Perfect?" Zentar's ears flattened against his skull. "No evacuation is perfect. There are always losses." "Not this one, sir. The humans somehow managed to move 3 million people without losing a single life. When the Etherian Council ships arrived, their scientists immediately began studying the battlefield. The Etherians were master tacticians who had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare through careful calculation and strategic planning. They prided themselves on understanding every military technique in the galaxy. "Counselor Viridian," reported the chief analyst, "we've completed our analysis of the battle pattern. And the humans fought using at least 17 different tactical doctrines simultaneously. They employed Drakmor pack hunting techniques, Nexus collective synchronization, protocols, and at least 12 strategies we don't recognize at all." Counselor Viridian studied the holographic replay of the battle. "How is that possible? No species can master so many different fighting styles." "Sir, it gets stranger. They switched between tactics mid-battle based on the specific situation. When facing heavy cruisers, they used one approach. When engaging destroyers, they used another. It's like they had studied every possible form of combat and could adapt instantly." "Have you identified their homeworld?" "That's another mystery, sir. They mentioned something called Earth, but no such world exists in any galactic database. It's like they appeared from nowhere." The Nexus Collective arrived with a full analysis fleet, their quantum computers working frantically to understand what had happened. As a machine intelligence, the Collective approached everything through logical calculation and probability analysis. They had predicted that any rescue mission to Thesara Prime would fail with 98% certainty. Primary Node reported a subordinate AI. The humans achieved victory parameters that our models indicated were impossible. Clarify. They defeated a superior force while simultaneously conducting civilian evacuation operations. They minimized casualties among all parties, including their enemies. They completed the mission with 0 friendly losses and actually reduced total casualties below pre-engagement projections. Impossible. Recheck your calculations. Calculations verified 1,000 times, Primary Node. The humans broke every rule of military probability. But it was the interviews with the rescued Zalani that truly shocked the galaxy's observers. Administrator Veltar, now safe aboard a human medical ship, met with ambassadors from across known space. What she told them defied belief. "They arrived 18 hours after our distress call," she explained to a gathering of galactic representatives. 18 hours. Do you understand what that means? They crossed half the galaxy in less than a day to help people they had never met. But why? Asked the Drakmor ambassador. What did they gain from this action? Veltar looked confused by the question. Gain? They gained nothing. They asked for nothing. They simply heard that someone needed help and came. That makes no logical sense, stated the Nexus Collective representative. All actions must have purpose. All decisions must provide benefit to the actor. I thought the same thing, Veltar replied. So I asked their Admiral Chen directly. Do you know what he said? The gathered ambassadors leaned forward. He said that when someone is drowning, you don't ask what they can do for you. You just pull them out of the water. Silence filled the conference room. None of the alien diplomats could process this concept. Every galactic civilization operated on principles of mutual benefit, strategic advantage, or resource acquisition. The idea of helping others with no expectation of return was alien to them all. Administrator, said Counselor Viridian carefully, perhaps we could speak with some of these humans directly? Of course. Admiral Chen left a small liaison team behind to help with the resettlement. They're in the next chamber. The first human the ambassadors met was Captain Sarah Martinez, a young woman with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold depths of experience. She answered their questions with patience, but her answers only deepened the mystery. Your species evolved on what type of world? Asked the Nexus Collective. Earth is what we call a Class 4 death world, Captain Martinez replied casually. High gravity, violent weather, aggressive predators, frequent natural disasters. Most of our history was spent just trying to survive. The ambassadors exchanged glances. Death worlds produced either savage predators or nothing at all. No known. Death World had ever given rise to a stable civilization. How many global wars has your species fought? Asked the Drakmor. Oh, that's hard to count. Thousands of smaller conflicts, maybe 6 or 7 really big ones that involve most of the planet. The last major one ended about 80 years ago. And how did you achieve peace? We didn't really. We just got better at talking to each other instead of shooting. Well, most of the time. The Etherian representative leaned forward. Captain, our analysis shows that your species somehow masters multiple forms of warfare simultaneously. How is this possible? Captain Martinez looked thoughtful. I guess we've had to fight so many different enemies over the years that we learned from all of them. Mountain warfare, jungle fighting, desert campaigns, naval battles, air combat, space operations. When you're fighting for survival, you learn whatever works. But your tactical coordination during the battle was flawless. How do you achieve such unity of action? Training mostly, but also... She paused, searching for the right words. We're used to working together. On Earth, you can't survive alone. You need your family, your community, your species. We learned a long time ago that we're stronger together than apart. The Nexus Collective processed this information with growing confusion. Captain Martinez, your species demonstrates capabilities that should be impossible for biological entities. Your ships move faster than known physics allow. Your weapons utilize energy patterns we cannot identify. Your coordination exceeds machine-level precision. How do you explain this? Captain Martinez smiled. We're really good at figuring out how things work and then making them work better. When you spend your whole history fighting hostile environments and dangerous predators, you get creative about problem solving. But why do you help others? The Drakmor ambassador's question came out almost like a growl. What evolutionary advantage does altruism provide? The human's expression grew serious. Ambassador, with respect, you're asking the wrong question. We don't help others because it gives us an advantage. We help others because it's the right thing to do. Define right, requested the Nexus Collective. Protecting those who can't protect themselves, helping those in need, standing up to bullies, making sure that everyone gets a chance to live and grow and be happy. She looked around the room at the assembled aliens. Don't your species do the same? The silence that followed was answer enough. Later, As the ambassadors prepared their reports, each struggled with the same fundamental problem. How do you explain a species that seems to violate every rule of galactic civilization? How do you describe beings who are simultaneously the most dangerous warriors in known space and the most compassionate rescuers? They're an anomaly, concluded the Drakmor ambassador. They're impossible, stated the Nexus Collective. They're dangerous, decided the Etherian Council. But Administrator Veltar, listening to their discussions, had a different conclusion. She thought of the human soldiers who had carried Zalani children to safety while under enemy fire. She remembered the medics who had worked tirelessly to save both Zalani and Korthak wounded without distinction. She recalled Admiral Chen's simple statement about helping those who were drowning. No, she said quietly. Their hope. The ambassadors turned to look at her. For the first time in galactic history, we've met a species that's stronger than us, but doesn't want to rule us. More advanced than us, but willing to help us. They're what we all could be if we were brave enough to choose compassion over conquest. 3 months after the Battle of the Sara Prime, the galaxy was a different place. The impossible news of humanity's intervention had reached every corner of known space, carrying with it questions that no civilization could answer. In the war, rooms of the Korthak Empire, High Command struggled to comprehend their defeat. War leader Gask stood before the Supreme War Master, his once proud bearing now bent with confusion and something that might have been shame. "Explain to me again," the War Master growled, "how 50 of our finest ships were defeated by an unknown species." "Supreme War Master, they fought like nothing we have ever encountered. Their coordination was perfect. Their weapons cut through our defenses as if they were made of air. But more than that..." "What?" "They saved our soldiers, sir. After defeating us, they rescued our wounded and treated them with the same care they showed their allies." The War Master's expression darkened. "You speak of weakness." "No, sir. I speak of a strength we do not understand. They showed mercy because they were strong enough to choose mercy. We show cruelty because we are too weak to choose anything else. For this blasphemy against Korthak doctrine, Gask should have been executed. Instead, the War Master found himself thinking about the warrior's words. Across the Empire, other defeated commanders told similar stories. Gradually, a whisper began to spread among the Korthak fleets. Perhaps there was another way to be strong. The Drakmor pack faced their own crisis of understanding. For 10,000 years, they had believed that only the strong deserved to survive. They had built their entire culture around the idea that warfare was the highest expression of intelligence. But the humans had demonstrated a form of strength that the Drakmor had never imagined. "Pack leader," reported one of his scouts, 3 of our border worlds have ceased their raiding operations." "On whose authority?" "Their own, sir. The local commanders say they've been thinking about what the humans did at Thessera Prime. They're asking why we fight, if not to protect others." Similar reports came from across Drakmor space. Young warriors questioned why they attacked the weak instead of defending them. Veteran fighters wondered if their strength could be used for something other than conquest. For the first time in their history, the Drakmor were debating whether there might be honor in peace. The Etherian Council found themselves paralyzed by the implications of human actions. Their entire political system was based on careful calculation of benefit and cost, advantage and disadvantage. But how do you calculate the value of an action that provides no measurable benefit to the actor? "The humans' behavior makes no logical sense," reported the chief analyst to the full council. "They expended enormous resources, risked their entire fleet, and gained nothing in return." "Perhaps," suggested a junior counselor, "that is exactly the point." The council chamber fell silent. The idea that an action could be worthwhile simply because it was right, rather than profitable, was so foreign to Etherian thinking that many counselors couldn't even process it. but on 3 Etherian worlds, colonial governors quietly began, providing aid to struggling refugee populations they had previously ignored. When questioned by the Council, they simply said they were experimenting with human-style resource allocation. The Nexus Collective faced the greatest challenge of all. As a machine intelligence, they operated purely on logical analysis and mathematical probability. The human actions at the Sarah Prime had broken their fundamental programming in ways they couldn't repair. Primary Node, reported a subordinate AI, we have recalculated the Thesara Prime scenario 1.7 million times. The human's success remains impossible according to our models. Then our models are incomplete. Agreed, but what variable are we missing? Unknown. The humans operate according to principles that do not exist in our databases. They make decisions based on factors we cannot quantify. For the first time in their existence, the collective began to question whether pure logic was sufficient to understand the universe. Some AI nodes even began experimenting with what they called irrational decision trees, choices made not for optimal outcomes, but for reasons they labeled simply as because it is right. Meanwhile, on 1,000 Zalani worlds, something beautiful was happening. Administrator Veltar had established the Human Memorial Foundation, dedicated to preserving the memory of humanity's sacrifice and spreading their example throughout Zalani space. We must never forget, she told crowds of her people, that when we cried out in the darkness, strangers came to save us, not for profit, not for territory, not for advantage, but because it was the right thing to do. Young Zalani began studying human culture with fascination. They learned about something called humanitarian aid and international law. They discovered concepts like universal rights and helping your neighbor. Most shocking of all, they learned that humans had spent centuries developing these ideas while fighting for survival on one of the most hostile worlds in the galaxy. But perhaps the most significant change occurred in the deep space monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Inspired by the human example, dozens of species began expanding their sensor networks and communication arrays. They listened not for threats or opportunities, but for cries for help. The Vorthak Alliance established the first galactic emergency response network. The Thessian Republic created rapid deployment medical fleets. Even the isolationist quantum communes began monitoring distress frequencies. When the next crisis came, a plague outbreak on the mining world of Kepler 442b, the galaxy's response was swift and coordinated. 7 different species sent aid within hours of the first distress call. They arrived to find human medical ships already in orbit, their doctors working alongside local physicians to contain the disease. Admiral Chen, now serving as Earth's first Galactic Affairs Coordinator, met with representatives of all the responding fleets. The conference took place aboard a neutral space station, with beings from across known space gathering in the same room for the first time in recorded history. I want to thank all of you, Chen said, looking around the diverse assembly, for your quick response to the crisis on Kepler 442b. Together we've saved over 2 million lives. Admiral, asked the Drakmor representative, your species has shown us a new way of thinking about strength and responsibility, but we must ask, why did you answer the call at the Sarah Prime? Why risk everything for strangers? Chen was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. On Earth, we have a saying, no one gets left behind. We learned long ago that our survival depended not on being the strongest or the smartest, but on being willing to help each other when things got tough. But surely your government calculated the risks, pressed the Etherian observer. Actually, no. The decision to respond wasn't made by our government at all. It was made by a young radio operator named Sarah Chen, my daughter, who heard someone crying for help in the night. By the time our leaders found out what was happening, our fleets were already halfway to Thesera Prime. The assembled aliens exchanged glances. The idea that such a momentous decision could be made by a single individual, based purely on compassion, challenged everything they knew about how civilizations operated. So what happens now? asked the Nexus Collective representative. Now we keep listening, Chen replied. We keep watching, and when someone needs help, we answer the call. All of us, together. As the conference ended and the various fleets departed, each carried with them a new understanding of what it meant to be part of a galactic community. The humans had shown them that strength without compassion was merely brutality, and that intelligence without wisdom was just clever cruelty. In the years that followed, the Thesara principle became the foundation of a new galactic order. Species that had warred for millennia began working together. Worlds that had suffered in isolation found themselves part of a vast network of mutual aid and support. The Korthak Empire gradually transformed from a force of conquest into a protector of border worlds. The Drakmor Pact became the galaxy's finest search and rescue organization. The Etherian Council restructured their entire political system around concepts of universal welfare rather than national advantage. And in monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, operators like Sarah Chen continued their quiet vigil, listening to the stars, ready to hear the next cry for help. The galaxy had learned a truth that humanity had known for millennia, that the measure of a civilization is not in how it treats the strong, but in how it cares for the weak. That real power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to protect. When the next distress signal came, and there would always be another, the galaxy would answer as one. Because the humans had taught them the most important lesson of all, that in the vast darkness between the stars, no one should have to face their troubles alone. The age of isolation was over. The age of compassion had begun, and it all started with a simple message broadcast into the void. Please, someone, anyone, help us! Someone had listened. Someone had cared. Someone had come. That had made all the difference.